Hey, you're listening to Fat and Greasy Citizens, a podcast about Shakespeare. I'm Fat.
And I'm Greasy. Every week we do a deep dive into every act of every Shakespeare play ever written, mostly while drinking.
More specifically, I'm Chuck. I'm a former English major and now a digital editor who cares a lot about Shakespeare.
And I'm Gabe. Let's do it!
In this episode, Taming of the Shrew, Act I.
I feel like this is a fun one to start with just because I find it so utterly alien. I think most of all, like the degree to which just the central, conflict of the story makes no fucking sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's never explained why. It never explained ways that make sense to me as a reader or watcher, like why Kate's so bad or why Bianca's interesting or what any of these people are doing. And it's fun to watch them do it, but they're just fucking madmen.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, why would Petruchio be the first to say, oh, I don't care if she's like that. I'm jumping in.
It's bags of money and she's beautiful.
That's what I like. I mean, I understand a shallow character and, that's the comedy behind it. But it's obviously very convenient for him to say that, obviously there's this huge obstacle for everybody else in the play who wants Bianca. And he conveniently comes in and goes, I like him rough.
Guys,
I like money.
You're saying he's a downside. I'm saying. So we agreed that we would look at the weird little precursor, whatever it is, with Christopher Sly. And again, I like it because it starts out just super fucking weird in that, so Christopher Sly, just wonderful name, so good that it almost doesn't seem Shakespearean. It seems like it'd be a character out of a novel you'd read from the 20th century, not necessarily a Shakespeare character. And it's just odd in that he's passed out drunk and a rich guy just rides in and he's just like, hey, let's see. He spends a paragraph talking about what to do with his dogs, the rich guy does, and then he's just like, hey, let's trading places this guy, let's just and everyone's just love it, boss, love it.
Yeah, and that's one of the first notes I wrote was screwing with the lower class. Immediately the Lord sees a sleeping man and his first reaction is, I'm gonna screw with this guy. There's the class, the sort of class warfare, right from the beginning. And that's the thing, is that this play, the actual play isn't necessarily about any of that, so just to have this weird,
and that's why it feels
prefix to the whole thing,
it just feels nicely alien because all of the people around him are just yeah, great idea, let's just horribly mess with this man's mind. Secondarily, there's a traveling group of actors. Let's have one of them dress up like a woman and try and seduce him. Not consummate it, but let's just do that. It's just
and that's the next note I wrote was right into the cross-dressing. Shakespeare loves the cross-dressing. It didn't even last a scene before a lord was like, you put on a dress, pretend to be a woman.
And I'm not saying you gotta fuck him, but I'm saying I want you to tease him real good. Tease him real good.
And it's funny because I was putting on my director's hat for that particular for that character, Bartholomew, the guy who is tasked with becoming a woman in that scene. And the obvious joke would be for him to be a man's man, too manly to be able to transform into a woman, like a hairy beast, that would be a running gag the whole time. Would be very funny. But then I could see it the other way too, where he makes a very good looking woman, and
I got just the guy for this. Wait till you put him in a dress. None of us would blame ourselves.
Yeah. And that's the thing is either way, it's funny, but funny in a different context. One way it's a joke on the Christopher Sly character for finding this beast attractive, but then the other way it's almost then it goes into kind of like an interesting LGBTQ avenue where, what is feminine beauty. And, I was really thinking about that. Like how would you cast Bartholomew for the joke?
Well, yeah, exactly. To have like the head actor and the Lord just be like, oh yeah, no, Bartholomew, totally. Like, I get it. Like, get him all gussied up. If I was gonna pick someone, also the fact that his name is Bartholomew is perfect.
Yeah,
we've all thought about Bartholomew.
I know the first name that popped in your head, right? Bartholomew.
Listen, I'm glad they named him Bartholomew, because if his name was something softer, oh my God.
I also love in that first scene, Shakespeare loves to do like bastardize foreign languages, and this is no exception. Like I think Sly says something to the effect of "Sessa," at one point. And actually it was like, okay, so it's probably like an Italian derivation or Latin, or something like that. And I was looking it up, and it just doesn't have a satisfying connection to any other foreign language word.
Well, yeah, and what, like, I'm not going to do a good job of like putting this into words. One of the things that strikes me interesting about this is I can't tell if that's Christopher Sly's supposed to be to like a 17th century audience or a 16th century audience, supposed to come off like a complete schmo.
Yeah.
Or like Sessa, like if I yelled that at my kids, they would know to stop. Like it's a wonderful word in that like it's just like, hey, Sessa.
Yeah. Or is he so drunk?
Like, the things that are supposed to be low class are off, like Kate, for instance, are like actually the things that resonate the most. Like the fact that he's supposed to be an idiot because he uses that word, but in fact it's just like that almost strikes me as like a great Shakespearean thing where it's like, oh, we should yell Sessa at people in real life because I just like that as an exclamation that someone should shut up or stop.
Yeah, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that he just made it up. Like, it sounds enough like Italian or Latin. And again, because it's a lower status character, Shakespeare gives you those hints all the time where it's like if a character is speaking in prose, chances are he's a lower class. If a character is bastardizing another language, chances are he's a lower class. So like what's interesting is that because this is such a early play, right? It's an early play.
Yeah, no. Yeah. As far as we know, it's one of the earliest.
It's one of the earliest. Like it really is a young playwright having fun. A lot of this stuff, a drunk character is always fun, but just as you pointed out in the beginning, the sheer absurdity of starting the play this way, like a play within the play. Obviously, Shakespeare is not, he's not a stranger to plays within plays, but like if this is one of your first outings, and you're already going that route, I mean, that's pretty high-end stuff.
And it's interesting that like, so again, like I find this play challenging overall because I can't tell if it's possible that Shakespeare's like putting on a feminist hat here, or if it's played just so. But like as far as the point of the story, like the intro has no point, and it could be that like it got wrapped up on the other end, and that part of the folio is lost to time or whatever else. But the interesting thing to me is that like what it fundamentally does is it takes this poor guy and just subjects him to rigorous gaslighting and brainwashing, which are like thematic things that come out of here. And so it could be just like plainly ironic that it happens. It could just be that this is a story written for assholes, and the asshole audience is like, oh yeah, we like it when you fuck with people. So
yeah,
first let's fuck with this guy, then let's fuck with Kate. And like, it could be like really smart and high-minded, or it could just be like, no, this is my first play, and so I'm going to keep watching people walk into rakes. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. And it's funny. I'm glad you said that, because while I was reading it, it reminded me of, I've taught billions of plays in class, and I always make it a point to point out, is the author commenting on doing social commentary in his time period, or is he a victim of that social machine? Like I was thinking about Medea, when I talk about Medea, Medea in the play Medea is all of her points are very good. She makes very good feminist points, but you can't be sure that a playwright 4,000 years ago was a feminist playwright. In fact,
Right.
you can almost guarantee that he wasn't. So then the play becomes this almost cautionary tale. So then I'm thinking, is Taming of the Shrew similar to that, where it's a cautionary tale? Hey, don't marry a bitch, guys.
Exactly. It's
like
unless you are really willing to beat her.
yeah.
It's gonna be exhausting, the amount of beating and just overall brainwashing you'll have to do. So unless you're a pro like Petruchio,
yeah, and that's the question: is it can we give Shakespeare that much credit from a modern standpoint that he was so ahead of his time that these characters had a feminist angle to them? It's we can never know, obviously, and it also comes down to the directing of it,
And I think that's what I think is fun, is that you can look at the play and decide, I'm either not going to do this because there's no way to do this for a modern audience, or I'm going to find some way to torque the directing of it to get to a place where it actually resonates with a modern audience. But I feel like you'd have just if I was going to try and tackle it, I just need to go the full what kept occurring to me thematically was Army of Darkness, where your protagonist goes back in time and it's just you primitive screwheads, and then they would try and use Old English, and they'd be like, listen, you dumb son of a bitch, I will shoot you dead if you try. And they try and use medieval logic with him, and he's just oh god, I'm just that's what I feel like Kate, and to a certain degree Christopher Slyer throughout it. You're just oh, I understand where you're coming from, but if you were plucked out of your own reality and dumped into the 16th century, and everyone was just look at this rogue.
And that goes back to what we were talking before we even started recording this, was that I had that idea of if it is in fact social commentary, it'd be very interesting if you believe the theories that Shakespeare was a gay man. It's an interesting idea that this play is an indictment of heterosexual relationships, right? It's it's a criticism of how men and women in the normal, quote unquote, normal relationship behave, and from that aspect, you might give him credit that it is actually a pretty poignant take on the abusive the abusive side of heterosexual relationships.
Yeah, it could just you could just give him credit for, or you could just produce the play as this is what I think a 17th century relationship is probably about. It's what's attractive is a woman who shuts the fuck up. That's the morality of the period. So let's segue into the actual Act One.
Okay.
Because I think the more that we talk about anything that's weird about gender, the more that it makes sense to get into the actual meat of it. So one of my favorite things, and again, my gut is that this is not how the play would be done at the time, but if I'm trying to think about how to have fun with it right now, one of my favorite things is that Lucentio, our alleged protagonist, walks on screen and he's just I am in town to learn about virtue. I want to be a virtuous guy and learn about virtuous things. And he's got his corporate toady, Tranio, with him. And as soon as he sees a vaguely attractive woman, he's just working out schemes to screw people over, do insane things. But his introduction to the play is just I'm here to learn, and by reading books about virtue, I'll become a virtuous and a happy person.
Yeah.
And he basically makes no moral decisions thereafter. And I can't tell if that's again, my way to think about it is oh, these people 400 years removed from us can't even wrap their head around morality or virtue as we see it. And so of course it's absurd that someone would say oh, what I would actually do is come here and read some books.
Yeah.
About virtue. In fact, their entire society is built around immorality overall.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's the first note I have about Lucentio is I hate Lucentio. I wrote, but one of the first notes I wrote was, "What a fucking bore this guy."
That's
Is it?
that's exactly what lodges in my head with the Army of Darkness comparison, in that all the medieval characters are absolute bores. Like there's two interesting groups. There's the Man from the Future and the Deadites, and everyone else is just like, what? Why do you bother living? You primitive screwheads. Just does it matter if the Deadites tear your head off or not? It doesn't.
Lucentio. Is there anything worse than a guy who's high on learning? like it's just like it. I am a guy who likes to learn myself, but I think talking about it immediately makes you such a douchebag. Well, I love Tranio is like, hey, let's not go crazy here. We're in a different town. We should probably have some fun too, because that's what a normal human being would do.
Tranio is also such an ass kisser, because like Lucentio is like, well, I want to learn about all these things, and Tranio is like, well, you should just do what you'd like to do, because that's the way you'll learn best. And like, again, like it felt like a really nice corporate toady, where he's just like, boss, just like whatever you do is perfect, and so just like go do whatever you want to do, and that's virtue, boss. Because listen, you're gonna be Lord someday. It's my job to just ride your coattails. So just do you, boss, and it'll be virtuous.
Yeah, he has that great line, Tranio. No profit grows where is no pleasure taken.
Just horseshit.
Yeah, but I like that. I like that kind of thing. Like, hey, if you don't have fun, you're not gonna learn as much. You're not gonna learn as much or get anything as much out of this if you don't have a little fun too. He's a sneaky guy. I mean, hey, it doesn't take much to talk him into being Lucentio in just a matter of pages. Like he's totally into the scheme. He's not. I think Tranio may be the problem. He might actually be the problem.
So they're standing there, and Baptista and Kate and Bianca walk up with Bianca's suitors. Bianca says nothing in the first act, but like Kate's like second line, I think, is to one of Bianca's suitors. And she basically says, like, I hope you're not interested in marrying me, because I wouldn't comb your hair. In fact, I would beat you with a chair until your face was covered in blood. And I'm just I actually love you. Like, if I went through a Bruce Campbell time warp, I'd be like, there it is. That's what I need. That's something I can understand. Like, that's exactly how you should talk to this person. Like,
I wonder if you could convincingly direct this play in that way, where Kate is clearly anachronistic.
Right. I just feel like, because her choices all seem rational to me, and the reaction of every other character is like, who is this Shrew, and how could someone wrap their head around such? And to my eyes, she is her and Petruchio are the only possibly rational characters. Petruchio is rational plus evil. But Kate is like straight up rational, and yes, if your father and weird suitors are talking about how tough it would be to marry you off, then like it seems fully rational to just say, like, I will beat you like we're in a WWE ring. Like, seriously, I'm the daughter of a rich man. I can do it, dude. Fuck off. I will. I'm being trapped in some weird relationship with you. Like, I will beat you until your face caves in.
Or just the antiquity of having quarters to begin with. Like, what a bore, guys who show up to woo you every day. But obviously not her, but that's got to get old.
Go up and just say things like, "Oh, whew, she's got a sharp tongue. I can't imagine." Like, again, it's so alien to say, like, she has such a sharp tongue. I would rather die than marry this rich, beautiful woman with a sharp tongue. Like, it feels like being transported into another Stepford Wives world or something. It just doesn't add up.
It also adds to terrible puns. I don't know if you caught the court and cart pun.
Yes.
Like in classrooms, that's exactly the kind of pun that they just fucking stare at you. Like when you try to explain it. See, he's saying courting her and he's saying carting her, like, out the door. And you can see kids just be like, it's just not funny. it's not funny.
So after casting Bruce Campbell as Kate, the second thing that's good to me, because like my frame of like pop culture is this small, is that like I almost, especially in Act 1, if you were just doing Act 1, I would cast Bianca as one of the chickens that Gonzo is constantly trying to fuck. Because you don't understand why he's trying to do but he's just mad for Camilla. And you're like, I can understand it, but it's fine. And that's how it feels for these guys to talk about Bianca the way they do. They're just like, oh my God. Like shortly thereafter, Lucentio is essentially panting, and he's like, she is so modest.
Yeah.
Wait, that's the thing that just like
that's the
gets
thing.
you into hot for teacher territory, where you're just like David Lee Roth all of a sudden like, did you see how modest she was? Oh my
God. And I think that's kind of, and that's why it's so hard to understand whether or not Shakespeare was conscious of this kind of, gender bias, this just this idea that her big selling point, yes, she's pretty, but she's obedient, like she's the opposite of Kate, I think I wrote it down, a maid's mild behavior and sobriety is how they talk about Kate, Bianca, right? That she's got a mild behavior and sobriety. Like that's what they found attractive. I can't see it because this is a comedy. I just can't see it as not a social commentary.
Right. You could easily show so much of this is men talking to each other about women, and just you could do it where they're just elbowing each other and be like, "Did you see how modest?" And just, did you see how she didn't say a thing? It was hot. The way she just kind of walked out of the room and said, I'm going to go study. Whew,
yeah. It's got to be. I mean, it has to be. It just is too self-aware to be not that,
Like, it's literally like, it's like they're describing like a piece of livestock that you want at a farm. Like you want one that doesn't make any trouble, does what it's told, and this is the type of cow you want. Like it's not someone that you want to live with for the rest of your life, but you're like, oh God, it just walked away. Like it didn't move, won't keep me up at night.
Right.
It's just bizarre.
It's like that one song. Have you ever heard that song from, I think it's the 60s? It's a terrible song, but it's like, if you want to be happy for the rest of your life, never make a pretty woman your wife.
Yes.
That one, it's kind of like this is that song in play format. You know what I mean? It's like,
if you that's actually pretty perfect. I actually want to see if I can take any lines from this play and set it to the cadence of that song, because it's perfect. Because they all think Kate's she's supposed to be attractive, but like the idea of her is so ugly. I don't know. It's just like perfectly sums up like their point of view.
Yeah.
Also, so I think you've seen all of the episodes of I Think You Should Leave, right? The Netflix show about.
I have, yes.
So there's a minor skit in there where they're late to a party, and Tim Robinson's just like making up excuses. So he's like, "Yeah, no, we're late because I hit a guy with my car."
Yeah.
And they get worried. They're like, "Oh, don't worry, it's a homeless guy. It doesn't matter."
Yeah.
That's exactly what Lucentio does when they run into Biondello.
Yeah, I have that written down. Lucencio's story to Biondello that he killed a man is so out there that it's absurdist.
Servant. There's no need to make up a lie about a murder.
It actually had me laughing. It's one of the few Shakespeare moments, because I don't remember reading this play, to be honest. I've seen it more than I've read it. So I don't know why I missed this line. I don't know if anybody cut it in the past, but it's so crazy. It's right out of, as you say, as Tim Robinson would do. It's like it's so bizarre that you would tell him that story. Like it makes no sense.
You're an employee, and you've got a semi-good reason for why you changed pants. You're like, oh, we changed pants. because I murdered a guy. And
Yeah. It really is. I mean, it holds up now that's a funny thing.
It's really, and so if you did Tranio the way you were talking about, the Tranio actually like understands the world and whatnot, it'd be a really good chance for him to just like wordlessly react like, why was that the angle you went with? Like,
yeah, just the slow burn. What are you talking about? Coming
right
from
before that,
Lucentio,
Lucentio says like, listen, I got this. I'm going to tell Biondello what's up. He's like,
Yeah.
Biondello, I straight up murdered a guy. I'm running for my life. So Tranio's going to act like he's me. And you
consider he started the scene saying, "I'm here to learn." And by the end of that same scene, he's like, "Look, I killed a guy." You know, like it's crazy. It's so well done.
Here an hour. How have you done this already? Because they start out yelling at Biondello like, "Where are the bags? You were supposed to be here with the bags." And he's like, "Well, I got the bags. Why'd you guys trade pants?" He's like, "Because I killed a guy."
Yeah, I mean, maybe the joke, if you're directing it, maybe the joke is Lucentio is that bad of a liar, or like he's so bad at this because he's such a bore that the first thing that comes into his head is the worst thing that could come into his head. You know. I killed a guy. What?
You know? Stabbed him dead. So I figured trade pants, right?
That makes sense to all of you, right? Everybody else here?
Gremio and Grumio is like, I'd really love to know like what it's just like the weirdest, laziest Mario Wario bullshit. Where it's why would you do that? Why?
And it's one of those things like Shakespeare is already confusing, you know, from a modern standpoint. So the idea that he's also doing like these closely related names is it's infuriating. Like I think I wrote that down somewhere. It's the idea that Gremio and Grumio have similar names is infuriating.
Right. That's when you actually have to pull out your pad and paper and be like, Grumio, poor dummy. Gremio, rich guy who's not gonna get Bianca. But
and that first scene, that pun about knocking on the door sucks. It is so stupid and drawn out.
Exactly. That's why I feel like it's so alien. So you have to figure out what do you want to do with that. You have to figure out, is Gremio trolling Petruchio? Is Gremio a moron and Petruchio's an animal who's just like purposely, because Petruchio's just a little bit vague. And so if Gremio's an actual moron, then like a bully of a boss could purposely be vague just to like watch this idiot squirm. But it's not a good pun. So you have to decide who's kind of abusing who, because
well, I mean, you said earlier that Petruchio is evil. You know, he makes the most sense, but he's also evil. And I think maybe if you want to go down that avenue, then maybe commit to Petruchio's a real asshole.
Yeah, and I think it wouldn't be hard to Gremio's one of the first, Grumio, Jesus Christ.
I know, it's impossible. So stupid. I hate that.
He's one of the first people to just speak in whatever it's called when you're not speaking in iambic pentameter. Just
the prose. He's speaking in prose.
Like he's clearly doing that in low class speak, and so like you could easily lean into that and make him a moron, and then just have Petruchio. That said, I don't know why, but it's still like maybe just as a release of like the unsatisfying back and forth on those puns. But when he says like, it says basically like he pulls him by the ear or something, and I was like, oh, good, this would be some good Three Stooges crap to just like slap each other around on stage. Yeah, but it feels like an actual release to actually get to it.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. The pun is so belabored that, you know, you'd really have to. If one thing about the Stooges is that, you know, their puns were like one-liners. You know, they wouldn't draw something out this much. Like it goes on for like 3 or 4 lines. Like it's too long. You know, like one and like that misunderstanding like bleeds into the next character coming in too. It's just too much, and it doesn't work. You know.
Yeah, no, you need to cut the hell out of it because it just kind of it goes on endlessly and forever. I think that's why I like the fact that he starts beating him, because you're like, oh, I'm not happy with wordplay, but just starts slapping each other around. So let's talk about Petruchio a little bit. I like that, like, he's introduced as just being an asshole to Grumio. And then his self-explanation to Gremio or whoever he's meeting up with. No, is it probably Hortensio that he's meeting up with? Is
Hortensio, like, yeah, because that's his best friend.
Yeah, so he's like, oh yeah, my dad's dead, so I'm taking a semester abroad. It's basically what he said.
Yeah,
it's just like, just establishes him as just like pure scumbag.
Yeah,
like I feel like you could do a really good job of casting. What's the name of the
Situation as Petruchio,
the three-named actor who died?
My dad's dead.
The actor who died.
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yes, thank you. Because I was going to
yeah.
Owl. That's not him. But just like, when he wanted to be a scumbag, he could be a really good scumbag.
Oh, 100%.
Oh yeah, my dad's dead, so I'm just here to, like, I don't know, fuck around or something. But like, I'm gonna have to do stuff soon. But like, I don't know, I'm just here. Like,
and you could totally believe that he's somebody who would marry somebody just for the money.
Oh yeah, and wouldn't blink.
You know,
like, the great part,
yeah.
where he's just like, what the fuck do I care? Like, you're saying it sucks? I don't care. Like,
she hot? She loaded? I don't care how she talks to me.
Listen, man.
The
clock is ticking here, all right? The well is dry.
You could cast Philip Seymour Hoffman or throw a dart into any Long Island bar and get the same result. And get somebody who's just as good.
Listen, man. That's dead. You tell me she's loaded. Good to go.
Petruchio, you say your dad died? Yeah.
Speaking of like any Long Island bar, like, I like the fact that it's out of like the worst 80s sex sitcoms when Bianca and Kate's dad is just like, all right, you guys got to stay away from my daughters. So the only people who can get to my hot daughters are teachers. So I'm just going to announce that and walk out of the room. But the only way you're going to get alone with my sweet hot daughters is if you wanted to teach.
And like, you could see like a close up to Jack Tripper.
Yeah.
Jack Tripper's face, like thinking about it. Huh. Yeah, I've got an idea.
Whoever his friend is from the Regal Beagle. We're just like,
Larry.
Yeah, we can pose
Larry and Jack.
Totally.
Oh my God. I'm seeing it now. It's Taming of the Shrew set in Three's Company 70s.
That would work really well. Don Knotts would make a really good elder, whatever the dad's name is.
Yeah, and I think you have to go Larry as Petruchio and Jack as Grumio, you know? Like,
oh yeah,
you know? Because Jack isn't as nefarious as Larry, you know?
Yeah, and like any of the endless like single episode people who dated Janet or Chrissy as Lucentio, because no one fucking cares about Lucentio.
No one ever cared. No one ever cared. And you would always, you know, you just have I can't think of his name now. Oh, I suck. The dad's name in this play.
Oh, I can't either. For some reason, right here, let me scroll up.
It's one of the few names that I didn't write down.
I didn't write down his name either. That's bizarre. All right,
isn't it like Granato or something?
That annoyed me because it's like Bianca, Biondello, and something else. Baptista,
right?
But again, like to have Biondello, Bianca, and Baptista, like,
yeah, I think that's like it's definitely like a holdover from, you know, classic comedies where, you know, the characters are kind of all the same, you know, like commedia dell'arte characters where it's like, this is
and that's one of the
things, braggart.
That's one thing about this play is like, it just has too many characters. Like the 19 different suitors for Bianca. I don't know. Like, I think it's aggravated by the Grumio stuff, but like, I don't know. Like, there's so many times where you find people who aren't Petruchio or Kate talking to each other. Like, anytime two men who aren't in the room with those two are talking to each other, you're just like, oh, just shut up. Just why? Why?
Yeah.
I want my villain or my protagonist here, but not you two.
Yeah. No, it's exactly right. Well, I think that's a lot of, you know, if you, again, giving Shakespeare credit, I think that's even today, there are comedies where it's like, do we have to suffer through the love story? You know, like, do we have to get the one character, like, do we have to have any scenes with this? Like, even the Marx Brothers did that, where you every scene is like a gem, and then you get to like the actual drama scenes that you have to throw in, and it's infuriating. It's like it's you know, and I feel like when you say like there's such a glut of characters in this, that it's the same thing. It's like you don't need half of these guys. Like let's move the story along.
Yeah, that said,
criticizing Shakespeare.
I'm a fan of Grumio just because he's a scumbag throughout. I want to find this line. I've got it in my notes. Where is it? Let's see. Looks like 75. It's right where Petruchio is explaining that he will marry Kate. And Grumio steps in and he says, "Nay, look you, sir. He tells you flatly what his mind is. Why, give him gold enough, he will marry him to a puppet or an anglet baby or an old trot with never a tooth in her head, though she have as many diseases as 52 horses. Why, nothing comes amiss, no money will come withal." So Petruchio is just like scumbag of the earth, and Grumio's like, no, really, she could be as diseased as 250 horses. She could be a toothless hag. And
yeah.
If she has a bank account, my boss will just, he's on it. I'm telling you, I fear Petruchio is being too nice, so I want to lay it out. As diseased as 250 horses in the 17th century. That's what my boss would do.
That's the greatest part of Grumio, I think, is like you can almost see like Christopher Lloyd playing him, where it's like, no, you don't understand.
Like, go down a level from Petruchio. Like Petruchio is a straight up scumbag, but Grumio is like, no, really, I've seen things.
This guy's a freak.
He's disgusting. I'm Grumio, and I'm repulsed by him. Like, if she's got a nickel in her purse, he will just do horrifying things.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, again, like I think that is pretty ahead of its time. Just that moment, you know, this idea that the underling is like, no, you don't get it.
Like I would love to work for a decent, honest man. There's no way. It's just she's got money, so he's gonna try anything he can.
Speaking of lines, even though Petruchio is a dirtbag, he has a line that I love. I just love. It says, "Twixt such friends as we, few words suffice."
Yeah,
and I think that's such a great line.
Well, I feel like it's great on a couple levels. Because first of all, like Petruchio is a scumbag, but he could talk. But he's also a manipulative scumbag. So like that's also a way to just like get past concerns from someone. And just be like, oh, with friends like us, let's not even listen. It's true with true.
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, with true friends, few words suffice. But also when you're just trying to be like, nah, I'll just listen. Trust me. For someone you clearly shouldn't trust.
Yeah,
like, it's just a great way to get there. Like we're friends. Like you can totally trust me to mortgage your house. Like,
yeah.
I'm good for it. We go way back.
Petruchio, and Grumio. Attorneys that law.
He also has those great lines where he's like, you think I can't put up with an angry woman? Like, have I not fought wars? Have I not sailed the seas? Have I not done all these things? And you have no fucking idea if he has or not. You just know he's really good at bullshitting. Like there's no, he's never walked on stage and someone said, oh, there's the great warrior Petruchio.
Right.
He's just like, what?
That's where
am I not essentially Thor? And it's just like, I don't know. Like,
well, that's where you have Grumio behind him. You have Grumio behind him making faces like, ugh.
No, I know.
Seriously, this guy. But, you know, what I love about that last scene in Act 1 is it does descend into an episode of The Bachelorette. You know, like Chris Harrison should definitely come out and be like, Lord, ladies, this is the final rose of the evening. And, like it's definitely it's as you say, it's out of a sitcom. Like it's too many suitors, you know.
Yeah, it's so like by the time the first act ends, just like I'm repeating myself, but it strikes me that like Petruchio and Kate both have the motivations that a modern person would have if they got stuck in a time warp. If you're a Petruchio, you're like, I'm gonna die of scurvy if I don't find a way to get money. And you guys are saying this woman's full of money and she's beautiful, and because someone says in act one that Kate actually is beautiful. But you're saying that she's mouthy? Like, no, that would be fine. And
yeah,
Kate on the other hand is like, just shut up or I'll beat you with a hammer. Everyone else feels like they're these bizarro characters who you would be like terrified to be surrounded by all day. And so like if I was going to try and like make this into something that people wanted to sit down and watch, like I would literally have those people talk like they were just speaking like actual humans, and everyone else is almost like ghosts of some strange device or something, because their motivation, I can't recognize them. Like I literally can't wrap my head around like assholery of this scale. Whereas those two, I'm like, oh, like you're in a terrible time, and the only way to survive a terrible time, for sure, is to be rich. So Kate, you don't want to lose your freedom by being matched with an insane person with the mentality of the 17th century. Petruchio, you also like, you know how fucked you are if you're not rich, so fuck it, you'll do whatever you have to do. And so they can be good and bad, but everyone else is just like, their lines can be archaic, but all their motivations are just fundamentally alien and archaic. And it's just, I feel like you'd either have to just like embrace that, or it's just a confusing muddle.
I think you've inspired me to do a Taming of the Shrew, where this is what I'm going to do. Kate's going to be a modern woman. You cast a modern woman in modern clothing. Almost everybody else will be from the 1950s. So like Gremio and Hortensio will be like, they'll be like 50s prep with like the slick back hair, like young Republican club guys. Petruchio will totally be a greaser like Fonzie. And Grumio will be like, you know, like a Squiggy and Lenny situation.
Yeah, but Fonzie can hear the universe. Like,
yeah. Like I think that like, as you say, like this idea of putting Kate out of time is an interesting idea.
What's the movie from the 90s where color comes to the black and white world? There's
the book called The Giver.
No, they're in like the 1950s, and something happens, and color.
Oh, it's like Welcome to.
Yeah, is it Smallville, or is that where Superman's from?
It's something like that. Yeah, it's like Gladville or Welcome to.
It might be Smallville. What's the name of Superman's hometown?
Smallville.
Okay, so it's probably not Smallville. It's probably IP that they couldn't use. But yeah, but it's
Welcome to Pleasantville. I think, isn't it Pleasantville? Or Pleasant something?
I think it's Welcome to Pleasantville.
Yeah, that's like Tobey Maguire and.
Yeah, but like you could have those two characters walking around in color, and maybe like you could have Grumio have like a hint of color because he understands just how grotesque his boss is. But like other than that, everyone else is just like, golly gee, can you believe the lip on that gal? I wouldn't be stuck with that for $1 million, no sir.
I think that would be perfect.
And she's just like, motherfucker, I will beat you until your head caves in. It's like, yeah, I get that.
She's like Daria.
Yeah.
We'll have her played by Winona Ryder. Or Brie Larson. Have her played by Brie Larson.
Well, I guess, so that's the fundamental thing, is what you just named are people who you would actually cast in a teen comedy now. You would actually cast Winona Ryder. You would actually cast Brie Larson. You would actually cast, what's the name of the now famous actress who's the love interest in Superbad, the red-haired woman.
Oh.
But like, regardless, the love interest
Yeah.
now is down to earth and like is a real person. Like there's no more storytelling crutch where like this woman from afar that you fall in love with speaks poetry once you get up close to her. Like what you actually want is someone who curses and burps and farts and doesn't take shit. Like
Roseanne Barr.
yes. That would be good casting. Actually, I would cast her as Bianca.
She's so modest.
But you could cast everyone else as Muppets. But
Well, I love the Gonzo, and is it Clementine is the chicken? Camilla is the chicken.
What's interesting is that he's got a bunch of chickens, but he just has it out for Camilla. So you don't know what it is that Gonzo sees, where he's just like, no, that's the chicken. It's just like,
who's Petruchio? Dr. Teeth?
all right. Oh, don't worry, maybe she could be as gross as 2 video horses. What movie? I think he'd be what's the giant brown guy, Sweetums or something? Like 8-foot tall guy. He's like, you don't understand me, man. I won't do it. She's got money.
That's perfect. Dr. Teeth could be the Grumio then, the hype guy.
Exactly.
You don't understand, man. He'd do it. He's crazy.
I don't care.
I think every episode should end with a Muppets breakdown.
I think especially with like, I've never seen anyone, you'd be more educated than me than like, but like take animation or puppets or something like that to like break down Shakespeare like that. Because one of the things that I think is challenging, and I've never put on a play to be clear, my background is as an English major, but that whenever you have a human actor like do something that's not on the page, I as an audience member would be like, oh, that's something that the director came up with, but that's not the play. And since it's Shakespeare, I have in my head like, I'm here to like take in a version of the play. But if you like fully change the form by like doing black and white or animating it or just having Muppets do everything, then you can start to like, at least if I was in the audience, get past my dumb cerebral cortex that's like, oh, that double take was not Shakespeare. That was the director sticking it in somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, famously, like I was told in drama school that that's the reason why Shakespeare is done, because it highlights the choices that the director and actors make, because it's so universal and at the same time ambiguous. You can play it a million different ways. That's why Bartholomew, the joke with Bartholomew could go different, many different ways. That's why, as we said, like these different takes, like even Muppets are totally within the realm of possibility. There's something amazing about his words.
I gotta say, like if you did that first part of the play with Christopher Sly, and it's all humans, and then they like sit in the audience, and then it's 2 humans and Muppets after that, like I'd be really happy with that. I don't know if this would work for 4 more acts, but like for this act, just like it would just make sense. Like it would just all feel appropriately bizarre. Just like,
yeah,
fuck? This hobo is watching. So this rich guy grabbed a hobo, told him he's rich, made him insane, and is now making him watch a puppet show, where all these Muppets are talking about how they wouldn't fuck this woman with B. Arthur's dick. Like it's just like what.
Well, when you say it like that, it's genius. Shakespeare pitching his own plays. So this hobo.
So listen, we start with a hobo.
This rich guy, CEO. Let's CEO comes in, sees his hobo, puts him in fancy clothes, and get this.
That's one of my favorite lines. He's like, and just give him so many rings, it'll blow his mind. He's gonna wake up with rings, classy rings.
And get this, one of his assistants dresses like a dame.
He's gonna bend over, and when he's so hot and ready to go, then we're gonna make him watch a play with Muppets. And Muppets will completely ignore the fact that there's a human woman and will say she's disgusting and they want nothing to do with her. All right? They'll just berate her. The woman's going to threaten to murder one of the Muppets, but we're on her side, right? And the only other human character is just this absolute madman who will announce to everyone that he doesn't care if the woman has as many diseases as 250 horses. It's going to be great. It's a classic operation.
Billy, I got to tell you come in with gold normally, but this is absolute. This is shit. This is all. And what's this? What's this? This pun with the knocking in the second scene? It's terrible.
Nope. If you take my knocking puns out, I won.
Billy, come on. All right, we'll let you have it.
As part of this project, we needed to establish a dialect that we think Shakespeare has consistently. It could be Bronx, Italian, or what? No.
I like the idea of a slick shyster from like 1940s Brooklyn. This is a good.
Picture this.
Picture this. There's this kid, and his dad died, and he's haunted by the dad's ghost. I sound like Tony Soprano all of a sudden. Not for nothing, but his mom gets married to the killer.
His uncle. Oh.
His uncle. It's crazy.
Creepy bastard.
I think honestly, like this is this scene is a really interesting way to start this whole situation because it is Shakespeare, but it's weird Shakespeare. Like it gets into that realm of the weird Shakespeare.
Yeah, and the fact that like the playgoing audience knows that it's about the Shrew. The Shrew has all of 8 lines. She's a rational actor, walks off screen. It just feel like there's no way around it. You either have to make it a story about the idiocies of men, or you just have to be utterly sexist about it. Like,
yeah, and you can't tell. I think there's a beauty in that. You know, just like those ancient Greek texts I was just talking about. Like, is it supposed to be criticizing the society, or is it just a product of that society? Like, it's impossible to tell because of how nuanced it is. You know.
Well, it's interesting to go back to the Christopher Sly episode, and because essentially what the play is saying is that if you have to assume that it's in a terribly homophobic time, that like it's way more appealing to have an actor dressed up like a lady bent over you while you're being brainwashed to think that you're a rich person. That's still 100 times better than a mouthy, rich, beautiful woman. Like the audience is supposed to be like, whew, I'd rather be that hobo who's gonna get a surprise. When
interesting. That's interesting because I didn't necessarily see the link between the Christopher Sly stuff yet, between that and the actual play. Maybe that's what it is, right? Even this fake relationship, this fake attraction between this cross-dressing man and this fool drunkard is better in some respects than what you're about to see. You know.
That a woman who is not mild. Oh.
Fat and Greasy Citizens was presented by the players Chuck and Gabe. The next episode, Taming of the Shrew, Act II. Theme song, A Robust Crew, by Darren Kerr.